My name is CXCD, and if you don't know who Derpy is, then you're lying to yourself. Derpy is basically the mascot of the My Little Pony franchise at this point. You've more than likely noticed her at some point before, whether it's in a YouTube video or the real world, I don't know. So, who is she? Why is she so big in the franchise? And most importantly, why do her eyes look like that? Derpy Hooves, as the fandom has so affectionately named her, was a random background Pegasus for the entirety of Season 1. She was actually reskinned during the first season. There's a lot of recolors of her sitting around in the first season. Like, for instance, this weird red-haired Derpy. That's weird, but that's besides the point. Derpy began life as an animation error in the very first episode of this entire series. She was there since day one. Seriously. During a scene in which Twilight is begrudgingly dealing with a party set up by Pinkie Pie in her own library, there's a moment where a background Pegasus, later, named Derpy obviously, has some crooked eyes. The shot in which he's present is extremely short. It's maybe less than 5 seconds long. But that 5-second long shot started a legend in this community. So why does she look like that? And why does Derpy continue to look like this? Like I said, Derpy's eyes were an animation error. In a previous incarnation of the library party scene, Derpy was covered up by another pony. Therefore, you couldn't see her face and therefore her eyes. But somewhere down the line, they decided to change it up a little bit. They moved some characters around and they also moved groups of ponies around. And that unveiled her face. And on her face was the crooked eyes. You would think a production would notice this issue, right? Well, if you're new to MLP, I'm sorry, but animation mistakes slip by very often. But I'm here to tell you that this is actually the outlier. The production team did notice this mistake. And what'd they do? They gave her a silly smile. That's right, they kept in this animation error for the sake of she looks funny. And it's only in a shot less than 5 seconds long, so who cares, right? We care. Of course, the production team never expected, this fandom to erupt from this innocuous cartoon show. So this silly animation error they left in suddenly overnight became a cult symbol. But the producers of this series were really cool, and what they decided to do was go back to every episode they hadn't yet sent off to be published by Hasbro and re-added the crooked eyes, which means that the first half of season 1 has normal Derpy eyes. It's weird, isn't it? Like the first 14 episodes has normal Derpy in it, and that just feels very off-putting. It wasn't until Feeling Pinky Keen where Derpy was finally added in with all of her scrambled-eyed goodness. I also have a feeling that Derpy wasn't meant to be in this shot, almost. I don't know why, but the fact they went back and changed her eyes to be cross-eyed makes me wonder if this was originally a different Pegasus, but decided that her name being Derpy and her dropping a piano on Twilight kinda fits her character, and decided to replace whoever originally was here. I have no evidence to back that up, I just think that. So, grain of salt, if you will. And then finally, in Season 2, we get a nod to the fandom. The production team gave Derpy a speaking role. Hooray! Now we get to know what our favorite mayor sounds like.
I don't want to do any more damage than you've already done. I just don't know what went wrong.
She was so controversial, they went back and erased her entire existence from the series. Oops. So, they gave Derpy in this episode a very slow way of speaking, a very slow cadence. Not that cadence, like speaking cadence. And it kind of made her sound, for the lack of a better word, special needs. And some people, I'm not pointing fingers, but some people thought that Derpy sounded a little bit offensive. So they went back and they redid voice lines and basically censored her for any reruns of this episode. It was well-intentioned, don't get me wrong. They didn't have to give her a speaking role. But honestly, I think the way Hasbro went about censoring it was just a little bit of an overreaction. Past that Season 2 episode, Derpy became more of a background Where's Waldo kind of character. So she went from an animation error to intentionally placed to voice acted and then back to Where's Waldo. Like, for the next 2 years, Derpy never really showed up again. She was still a Where's Waldo character, but she was never really the focus of a shot per se. It wasn't until around Season 4 when she slowly started to come back. She made an appearance as an almost main character during the Rainbow's Falls episode, being Rainbow's backup replacement flyer. I don't know why, but something about Derpy in this episode just makes me think that she's just extremely cute. That's just, I don't know why, but that's just the most adorable thing I've ever seen. Past season 4, she does really come back for good. And even in season 5, Slice of Life, she gets her voice back. And for that one episode at least, she's a fully fledged main character. Past season 5, she's still a Where's Waldo character, but she's in a lot more shots, she's a lot more focused of a shot, and she even got voiced in a few episodes. Also, before we move on with the in-lore reason why Derpy's eyes are, you know, like that, I want to touch on her name. I've been calling her Derpy for this entire video, but that's not her real name. Actually, she doesn't even have a real name. Derpy is just the most recognizable character name. Derp is supposed to be something you say when you make a mistake, like an oops. Like, oops, my cat brought in a dead rat. Derp, that kind of thing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the phrase was a lot more common 14 years ago, trust me. Nobody uses derp nowadays. You see somebody walking on the street going, huh, derp, you probably think that they're stuck in the past, or they're doing it ironically. So because of her eyes, her demeanor, her cadence, not you again, she was named Derpy. But Hasbro doesn't like that, because derp can actually be used as an insult, Derpy. So Hasbro renamed her to, well, she has 4 official names, Derpy being one of them. There's Derpy, Muffins, Bubbles, and Ditsy Doo. I think the majority of the fandom agrees that Ditsy Doo is probably the best replacement name for her. It's not offensive, and it still gets the point across. And it's not on the nose like Bubbles or Muffins is, right? I mean, Muffins because she likes muffins, and Bubbles due to her cutie mark. So finally you arrive at the in-lore, in-universe reason why Derpy's eyes are like that. And for a kid's cartoon show, you'd be genuinely surprised. While there isn't an actual, you know, medical condition named off on the show, it does show enough evidence to kind of sort of get a picture of what's going on. In Parental Guidance, one of my favorite episodes by the way, we get a flashback scene of some kind of podium signifying some Cloudsdale race. We're supposed to be focused on Rainbow Dash, who goes from participation trophy all the way to number 1, but if we start at the beginning and don't look at Rainbow Dash, look at who's on the number 1 spot right there. Isn't that Derpy? Well, yes, Derpy is number 1, and as the shot progresses, Derpy slowly loses the ranks and goes all the way down to the DNF spot. But not only does Derpy fall in position, as she falls, so does her eyes. Her eyes slowly drift apart, which implies she didn't just fall behind in terms of flying, she was impeded, which is kind of sad. This sort of implies that if her eyes never went out of whack, she would have been as good, if not better, than Rainbow Dash. She might have even joined the freaking Wonderbolts. That's sad. But despite all this, and even getting corrective surgery that failed because it didn't fix her eyes, through all of this, Derpy still has a smile on her face. Maybe that's something we should all look up to, huh? No matter what, Derpy keeps smiling. So maybe you should too, alright? I think that's about it for me, so I'll see you guys later, and make sure you subscribe, please. Bye-bye!
I bite at the hand that feeds me, slap at the face that eats me. Some kind of animal cannibal made impressions on me.